thing. It was fantastic, and it's one thing. See, we are having some more come in. I knew it. These are my faithful right here. You missed it. It was fun. We had a heated debate.
Are you the only two?
We were up in here like Congress yelling at each other. It was great. Oh Lord! But I don't think anybody else is getting online.
So, was Bill on the first?
He was.
Yeah. Okay.
He was. Yeah. I didn't know if he was gonna make it or not, but he got on there. Man, I'm tired. That first one tired me out. I ain't gonna lie.
So maybe we should go first and they come out.
I think so. Oh yeah, that's fine. We're good. I don't think we're gonna have any other. I doubt it. I doubt it. Yeah.
The way to do it is, so say you pull the video.
Is that both of them?
Touchdown.
Both of them. Yeah. Say you're about the, you need to share this. What you do is come to share stuff.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
important. So you can show the whole desktop if you want, or you can show that one application.
Oh, very cool.
But very important if you're playing a video that has audio, you need to click
Share computer sound. I gotcha. Very good. What's that whiteboard on there? Is that or you can actually draw on the? Get one of those little pens where you can. Ah, hey!
Doing now. Oh, yeah.
I was drawing pictures of trucks for the guys yesterday. That'd been fun to do it on the screen. I was wondering that same thing. I guess not.
We thought maybe y'all locked our guys up.
They just had a lot of questions, a lot of things they wanted to talk
I
about.
don't have anybody, so I can't ask questions.
Well, and that's. Let me just say,
Hear him say
green. Let me just say that Nita, because she's been doing this so long and she understands both sides of it so well, she was a rock star for the first meeting. Because every question they had, she was basically able to say, this is how we've been doing it for the last 6 months.
But see, she had Angie
Yes.
every day working.
Yes.
with her.
Yes. And that is the concern. And that is also a problem. And that's kind of what we're seeing is.
For that too, though, so you can, and you'll still be available.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And like I say,
That's what I'm saying.
this is
She
all
knows
test
better.
stuff for Nita.
She has
Now
some
we're going past the testing stage.
Yeah.
Both sides knows better now.
Yeah. And it may be one of those things, and don't hold me to this because it's not my decision. It may be one of those things where we slow down a little bit on the drivers getting on it. I understand them wanting to switch to it as quickly as possible because for the drivers, it's a much simpler system. All the stuff that goes with it, the little things that have to happen in order for it to be easier for the driver. Sometimes it's not easier on y'all's side. There's some other things that they're having to deal with.
I don't know what this week. This has been a bad week for drivers doing their information anyway.
Macros or workflow or both?
Not workflow, just regular
Macro.
time. They've been horrible.
It gets rough sometimes. I mean, and I know that just from I remember driving and getting tired, and even us would mess them up. Well, yeah, Jay, we were talking about the local drivers doing their macros, and I specifically remember him saying, "Don't worry about doing them." But then when we were sitting in here, he's like, "Yeah, they're supposed to. They don't. But they're supposed to." And I was like,
used to not do it, but they got on to about doing it.
yeah, it makes sense because it's all that stuff has to.
What the biggest thing was like with that, Woody shows up on our board.
Yeah.
And somebody else shows up on our board. Somehow Laura's driver shows up on our board occasionally. I don't understand how that happened. He's local. Yeah. I don't understand that. But Woody shows up. All his shows up on ours. They should be on their board.
Yeah,
And I was doing Rocky too.
Yeah, Rocky same way. Yeah.
that's odd. Well, I had a couple of different things planned because I didn't know how the meeting was going to go, and obviously They took more than a half an hour to ask their questions, and that's fine. That's what, this stuff's all about. But the biggest concern, the biggest question as far as workflow goes up to this point is that the message that everybody's been getting is that if it's not included somewhere in a trip plan or a pre-plan, the truck cannot move until it's included in the trip plan or the pre-plan. So then you've got Rebecca, who's telling her driver to sit, and they're sitting there for an hour, and then they'll get their pre-plan. And at that point, they have an hour less to get there and do what they need to do. When that whole hour they could have been driving toward, just like you do now.
Yeah, right.
With the macros, you're like, go ahead and head toward New Orleans, because by the time you get halfway there, we're going to have your load to you. Okay. So what John was saying, and the message that they were getting from IT or what MIS, I'm sorry, is that what they call you, MIS? One of them was don't move the truck under any circumstances. John said, move the damn truck. In paraphrasing, okay, he said move the truck because Billy would lose his mind if he found out that we had 10, 12, 15 trucks sitting for an hour or two waiting on the load to come to them.
Tell them all the time, right. They can't move the truck. I hear them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's not so much as of a can't, it's a if at all possible, don't.
I think a lot of it she was saying is because then they have to go in manually fix it all.
Yes.
It messes the system.
It can't. And that's going forward what we've got to address. See, what we've got to figure out is how does Schneider National handle that with 20,000 trucks? They're dispatching these people every day. How do they fix this? Because I guarantee you they're not going to make their driver sit for an hour. I mean, I drove for Schneider and I took the good and the bad with it, but I was in Texas one time. They let me sit for 20 minutes and then they sent me a load saying bobtail 500 miles down to, Badwater, Texas, that was right on the Mexican border, because that's the only thing we have within 1,000 miles of you. We can't afford that so much. But as far as
But the thing is, I know it's probably not a whole week now. What's getting me though is they don't want the driver sitting because they're gonna start paying attention. Drivers don't. I mean, any company I have worked for never paid attention unless you was sitting in a plane
exactly.
waiting to load. or
Exactly.
unload.
Exactly.
And then that was those places paid attention.
Exactly. But because of the hours of service laws, the hours of service rules, I mean, we all know electronic logs, everything is tight. Every minute has to be accounted for. Everything has to be right. And so an hour lost is thousands of dollars out of the company's pocket, hundreds of dollars out of the driver's pocket. We can't have them sit. So that's what we are going to address with IT. We're going to talk about that side of it. From what I understood when this whole thing started was anytime there was an extra movement that needed to happen, it needed to be added as a leg, either onto the last trip they completed or the next pre-plan they're going to be sent. If you need to leave from the place you just delivered to and drive to the pilot 30 miles away to park for the night, then they add that leg from where you were done until the pilot. And then the next morning, when the pre-plan comes in, it starts at the pilot and it goes down the road. Now, let's say the pilot's north and they had to go south. Well, why would we not pay that driver 20 miles to drive north to the pilot? I know that's extra money, because like when I was out there and they would say, you don't have anything, I'd get my little truck stop book out. And the closest thing's 35 miles. It's in the wrong direction. I'd go ahead and drive up there. I wouldn't get paid for it, but I didn't care. At least I had a place to stay. So even if they don't want to pay them, as long as it's accounted for, I think that's
Move, which is unauthorized leg, but with the understanding it was a truck stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly. So again, it to me, because the system is supposed to be simpler, to me that would make the most sense to do something like that, and the concerns that were coming up was it's going to mess up the geocaching. It's going to mess up this. It won't mess up the geocaching as long as that leg is included. As long as they depart from this place and they arrive themselves when they get to the pilot, it should all still be the same.
Well,
It should all be fine.
yes, it is. So if you put that in there, you got to know the address of the pilot.
Wouldn't take long to look it up.
You do. And yeah, I mean, well, Google Maps pilot app. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look it up really quickly. I know because, we do travel a lot of the same routes. And we, of course, do travel every single highway out there. But, ultimately, locations, we know they won't let them stay. We're going to have to be like, your safe havens are this Pilot, this Flying J, this whatever. And that way they'll know when they get there, depending on the time of night, depending on what's going on, they're going to have to go to a certain one. Again, that's not something that, Rebecca had mentioned micromanaging, and that the bigger companies, they give them everything. They give them fuel stops. They give them where they're stopping for the night. They basically do their whole trip plan for them. And that's not really, I don't think, the direction we want to go. But again, we want to make sure that these guys understand if they're going to a certain location, there is going to be a limited amount of places to park, and that it's going to be included in their work assignment so that they know what to do after that. But that was the biggest question, was extra stops and extra stuff like that. Rebecca had a situation. She said multiple situations where something changed while they were in transit. She was telling her drivers to pull over, and then they would take the work assignment out, put the new work assignment back in. Then they would go through the motions of whatever they needed to do and keep on driving. And she said, these guys are sitting for 45 minutes while this is going on. Well, first of all, they should never sit for 45 minutes. When the load is removed and then resent, it shouldn't take any more than 2 minutes. If they're in a spot where there's no reception, well, they obviously are going to need to move the truck anyway to get to reception. So that's another thing they're going to have to figure out how to add up those miles. But when I talked to IT earlier, what they said was any updates that come to the IVG, the OmniTracks, while they're driving down the road, they do not have to stop. They can just keep driving. The example I used was here. I'm going to use my whiteboard. So you've got Villa Rica here. They're routed to come all the way to West Point. They cross of course this is backwards, but anyway, no, this is heading west. Okay. So they get here to the, Georgia, Alabama state line, and they say, hey, we need you to go up here to Gadsden, drop a trailer, pick up this trailer, and then come on back. So what Rebecca was saying was pull into the Pilot right there, wait for them to send you the new leg. Once you get that new leg, then you go through, accept the new leg, then you can get back on the road and continue on to Gadsden. All you got to do is go to Gadsden, because by the time you get there, that new leg will be put where it's supposed to be, and then you just got to arrive yourself, or it will arrive you manually. So they won't have to stop and wait for all that to happen. As for the whole reason why it's taking so long, because we've had Laura had the same problem, Rebecca's had the same problem. There was somebody else had that same. It was just taking forever. One of the things that we do have to look into, and this is a big one, if we're using cell phone towers and they're in cities like Atlanta, that may be one of the reasons. Because even if it shows full bars, if you're in a city with 10 million people, I mean, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. It may take it that long.
The towers, you never know where they're going to be off.
That's exactly right.
Because when they're supposed to be, say, what is it, Toledo, okay, as of today. It's supposed to be Toledo, but it's showing North something rather, instead of Toledo. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a difference too.
You're absolutely right, because it's not going to be able to, narrow in exactly where it needs to be. I know, and I honestly don't know the cost. I don't know any of that stuff, but before the cell phone network was so good, they used like actual satellites to communicate. When Qualcomm first started, that's what they used. So I don't know if that's still available, if that's a better option. I don't know. That may be something we need to look at going forward. From what I understand, I don't know if there's any.
We had two different types.
Yeah.
Had some off, some off.
Exactly. So they may have completely phased it out, because I can imagine how expensive it would be to have all those communication satellites and all that kind of stuff. I bet the cost was astronomical to do that. And it's a lot cheaper to do cell phone towers, because you don't have to worry about paying somebody to launch it into space with a rocket. So, But again, that's something that needs to be addressed. Is
SpaceX dropped like 12 at one time.
There you go. Yeah, they
did.
That's a good point too. And there's satellites up there that are like the size of a deck of cards, you know, and it's
I think
handling 50,000 phone calls a second or something.
we saw that long set now. They're going to, in the next 5 years, they're going to put down, oh, you can just fish net up. Well, putting out a little bit further. They're probably a lot faster, a lot more information.
Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious.
They're unloading like 10 at a time.
That's amazing. But anyway, I think that's a part of it. I think it's that we're using cell phone towers. I think certain times of day it's going to be worse. Obviously, there's areas that you don't get reception. Michelle Shaw on the van side, the one that Laura had a problem with last night, I think the biggest reason that she had a problem was she had no cell phone reception. She and Laura had to call each other back 7 or 8 times. And she finally got frustrated and moved her truck around the front of the building, and wonder of wonders, she had reception. And then here comes the Lotus on. So it turned out to be a reception issue, you know? So, I mean, things like that, this is all stuff that we've got to, but I also remember when I was driving doing the macros, it was the same thing. There'd be times when, depending on where I was traveling, you know, they'd be like, well, I sent you the work assignment. It's been about 20 minutes since I sent it. And then I'd, you know, come down a hill around a corner and the valley would open up and, oh, there's my work assignment. So. I tell you what. I tell you what. I mean, yeah, it's all crazy stuff. But anyway, I did kind of want to talk to you, and I know you're going to be getting a couple of drivers tomorrow, right? Or soon.
I know.
At least one. Okay. Just understand everything we've heard from the drivers. They're glad to have it. Everything we've heard. We have even Lee Dunlap, who I figured would be the biggest naysayer out there, is happy.
Never complains about it.
I mean, he's not only.
Still having a little bit of trouble compared to, say, Joshua.
Yes.
Or Scooter.
Oh yeah.
Scooter's really good at that.
So that's all great. That's really good. But yeah, that stuff is just going to have to be addressed. So one thing about the meeting that we had earlier, and then just, you know, me just talking to y'all is that's definitely something I know I need to spend more time on every week is learning more of that side of things. Because, you know, they were talking about things like, well, what about this? And then right now we have to do it this way with this. And they were talking about all the different facets to what y'all have to do. And I'm like, I had no idea that you have to do all that to make this happen, you know, and that's something I need to know. So, but
question, are there videos? I know y'all, they had one on our webpage.
Yeah.
About workflows. Are those still going to be available to go and watch?
They are on YouTube. If you go to the Royal Trucking Company's channel, there's 2 or 3 there. They have set up I can't remember what it's called. Basically, it's like almost like a little info thing. It's kind of a back door. They sent me a link to it, but anyway, where I can look at those videos, and they sent it to me through my email, where you can just, instead of actually going, you know, onto YouTube, you can watch them that way. But David is doing more and more videos. He's every time something like this comes up, he's doing another video that more centers on what the problem. Okay, well now we've got 3 videos that show us this. This is the issue. Yeah. Yeah. He did a good job on those. The first one didn't have any audio at all. The second one, actually, he had some audio, and I think there's a third. But the one he's working on now that he's going to hopefully have done pretty soon is showing what the driver sees. And it's just going to be 100% what the driver sees. It's going to be going from one part of the load to the other. That's what I'm going to be using in orientation and the upgrades. That's when they're going to be getting trained. Every driver that comes in will be using that video because they will actually get to see the breakdown. Right now, I have a PowerPoint that just doesn't do it justice. They don't understand. I'm trying to say, you know, if you do this and do this, it's the same picture for all 4 things.
That's like Qualcomm when they got back here. That was my baby because But I never saw anything hardly at all about
Yeah.
what the driver saw.
Yeah.
They called me with questions. I just had to kind of feel my way through it.
Sure.
Because I never saw that. But like you seen the driver's side of things, really should help.
Absolutely. I think it will. And shoot, I can't remember what I was going to say. My brain just turned off. But yeah, so it's going to help this company a lot. It's going to be good for the drivers. It's going to take some troubleshooting, some work, some figuring things out. But you know, once all this stuff gets ironed out, it's going to be a better system. You know, I do believe that. So, I was going to say that we were talking about how I bring them in here and show them the PowerPoint, and they struggle with it. And then I had a driver this morning. He called me and said, "This is what's going on. How do I fix it?" And I was able, without even looking at his screen, I was able to tell him what he did wrong, and he was able to go in and fix it, which actually made me feel really good because I didn't know I knew that much. Well, then not 5 minutes later, I get another driver, and they were both here on the yard, that said, "Hey, this is the problem I'm having." And so I actually, for him, I just walked out here and got in his truck, and then I could actually see it live and realize I told him the right thing. This is good. But for him, it was great because he looked at it and said, "So I did this and this, and now it won't let me do this." And I said, "All you got to do is hit the back button." And he hit the back button, and it literally, like, that's it. You know, that's all I had to do. You were just one screen too far in or whatever. So it's like simple little things like that. Once he saw that and realized that was the case, I think he's going to be just fine. I don't think we'll have any problem. One of the other things that I talked with Kent about was we've got drivers that have been doing this for a couple of weeks or a few weeks, and now we're starting to see the little errors creep in. Because when they first started, they wanted to get it exactly right, and they're like, "I don't want to do anything wrong. I want to make sure it's right." What's up? What time is it? Yeah, I'll get to them. The trainees and everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Has he been given a yard tour or anything? They've been given the yard tour. Okay. Yeah. Tell him to sit tight for about 5 more minutes, and I'll be in there. As a matter of fact, they can come back in here in about 5 minutes. So, but you know, we have drivers that have been doing this for a while now. They're starting to get complacent. So that's when we're starting to see little things. And then I'm getting phone calls. It's like, "Well, you've been doing this for a couple of weeks." "Well, yeah, but I don't know what I did wrong." So we'll trace it back, and he would just jump the gun on something. Not a big deal. It was easy to fix, you know, on our side. I don't know, you know, on operations side, but on his side, it was easy to find the problem. So I'm hoping for good things.
Me too. I am really hoping for good.
That's it.
Like I say, in anything they get for doing it over and over again, they get places and they just let things slide.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, everything. Procurement, logs, all of it. But yeah, Benita was great. It was really good because every question that they asked, she's like, "Well, I've been doing it like this, and it's been working fine this whole time." And IT has backed her up and said what she's doing is great. So she's a good one to learn from.
She's been doing it about 6 months too.
Somebody that will work you through these.
Yes,
Makes a big difference. Well, we all don't get that same treatment.
I understand
They
that,
get
and that's
thrown at us.
yeah.
That's
I
just
totally-
like when, I mean, I barely knew TMW when I came in here, and they just threw me in and said, "Go for it."
Yeah.
Well, I know basics.
Yeah.
3 days. 3 days. See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
yours wasn't a good one.
but one of the ideas that was brought up in the earlier meeting that I'm hoping is going to become a thing is at least a few days a week, when, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever days are, you know, easier for IT. Set up a time during the day where from like 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 3 in the afternoon, any workflow issues you have, they can do a conference, just like, you know, we've been doing like this, where people can, right at their workstation, can put their headset on and they can, you know, hook up with Angie and she can show them different things while they're sitting there, like live action, while they're moving stuff, you know, because I know she's not always here, but not just Angie. I want to learn that stuff too, because that would be something that I would absolutely be able to do from my desk, you know, or I would be able to back her up and David and anybody who knows that stuff. So I'm hoping that that's going to become a thing really soon, for the simple fact that I think, like you said, that one-on-one, it's really important to have
And I've learned
even a little bit.
I still have to do things that I not learned in advance.
Sure. No, I hear you. Awesome. Well, thank y'all for coming. And that's it. I did have something else I was going to talk about in the last meeting, but we are definitely over time. So we'll do it another Thursday.
They took all of our time away.
They did. They did. Y'all still managed to stay in here almost a half hour though. So I really appreciate it. Y'all have a good evening.